First, Seth Garrett, Composition 1. Just wanted to get to know you about the writing process, what you think about it, how you work with it, and then I'll go ahead and start my question. Did you get good grades in school on essays specifically because you used a specific process, or was it kind of based on inspiration, you just went as you wrote as you went, or did you say, I need to do this, and this is what I'm going to do, and it went from there?
I have always been very bad at pre-writing. I'm so old, I used to take typing classes. I'm a typewriter, and the teacher would always say, you know, you take your pencil copy and then you should be looking at that when you're writing. And I never had a pencil copy. I just write straight out from my mind. From high school to my job as a professional writer, I don't do a lot of pre-writing. I just kind of come up with an idea and come up with a ending, and then I just write till I get to that ending. And I'm not saying that's the way you should write, but that's the way I do write. And when you write like that, you know, your plot trajectory is supposed to look like that. My plot trajectory looks like that, which means I kind of have to resign myself to another round of edits. So once I get to the end, I have to start over and smooth everything out. I'll get to page 100 and think, oh, should have done that at the beginning, but now it's too late. So pre-writing is a wonderful thing, and I know certain authors who like to know exactly what's going to happen in every single chapter before they even start, and I think that's a wonderful way to write. I'm more of the chaos theory of just sitting down and seeing wherever the heck the characters take you.
That makes me feel much better because that's exactly me.
A lot of people do that. A lot of people just like to think I'm just going to put down whatever comes to mind and I'll fix it in the editing.
Okay, thank you. That's my question.
Okay, my name is Ryan, and I'm really excited to be here today.
Well, thank you.
And my question is, how do you get the creative process going? Do you have any special rituals or routines?
Coffee. It's like cartoonist Gary Larson said, get caffeine into me and some weird things start to happen. But for the most part, now I'm full-time employed as a teacher. I'm a husband and a father, so a lot of times it's right when I can, not when necessarily the inspiration hits me. Sometimes I will have the greatest idea and I will want nothing more than sit down in front of the computer and write it, but I can't because I got a group of kindergartners I'm trying to teach how to use a computer, and so they're saying, get it out of your mouth. On the other hand, sometimes I will have a complete block of 5 hours with nothing I need to do but sit there and write, and I'm sitting there in front of my computer and I'm just tapping those keys, but unfortunately I'm playing Tetris because I got nothing. It's not so much just a magical process where I think now the muse has hit me and I will write. It's just I get ideas when I get them and I write when I have time, and hopefully that connects to make a decent story.
Hi, I'm Laura, and I was asked, what books did you enjoy in your youth and now, and how did they influence your writing?
When I was growing up, I read just about anything I could get my hands on, which is probably why I eventually became a librarian. I just absolutely loved to read all the time. And when I graduated from the kid chapter books, I kind of went straight to the adult books, because at that time there was not a lot of books made for teenagers, and those that were written for teenagers were either very sweetness and light and superficial or very, very preachy. So growing up, I went straight to adult books and read a lot of science fiction. Read a lot of old-time pulp fiction, comic book heroes. Anybody ever heard of Doc Savage? Great books from the 30s. Now as an adult, I'm going back and reading the wonderful YA books they have out there. I loved Hunger Games. Ready Player One is a book that just came out I really enjoyed. My friend Anthony John, he writes some very good books. I can't get enough of his stuff. So I kind of read adult books when I was a teenager. Now I'm reading teenage books now that I'm an adult, and I just think it's wonderful that there's so much to choose from now.
My name's Araya, and how did you get recognized, and how did you start your career?
Well, I was living in the country of Mexico at the time, and I was just kind of completely burned out with no direction, and I thought, okay, what's a gringo to do in Mexico? And at first I thought I can join the Zapatistas uprising and go down to Chiapas and try to help overthrow the Mexican government. And I thought, no, that's a really bad idea. Then I thought, well, what else do gringos do down here in Mexico? They drink hard, and I was doing that. And then I thought, well, I could write a book. And it was nothing I ever thought to do before. If somebody had asked me in high school, hey, why don't you write for fun? I would have thought, yeah, I'm going to write for fun. Writing's real fun. How about I do some math for fun after that? But I really regret that I didn't start out years ago. But it was just something I kind of fell into. I just started writing a story. It was very much based on my own high school experiences. And the way I got that in, the way I eventually became published is after many rejections, many letters of rejections, I entered a contest. And I didn't win the contest, but an editor saw it and said, this has possibilities, why don't you rewrite this and show it to me again? I mean, she didn't promise me anything other than she'd give it a second look, but that was a big break. And after several more rewrites, she eventually offered me a contract. Unfortunately, when you're writing, so very much of it is luck if you want to be published. You got to get that right manuscript in front of the right person at the right time. You think back about 15 years ago, how many editors picked up a manuscript and said, Harry Potter, a boy who discovers he's a wizard. Oh, that's original. You just got to keep at it. You got to show it to every single person you think might possibly be interested, and you got to harden yourself to the rejection process, because there is a lot of rejection. And I've known a lot of very good potential authors who just gave up after one or two no thank yous.
Zach, and I was going to ask you, how long does it take you to get a concrete idea to send to the publisher, and then how long does it take the publisher to go through the process of editing and everything?
It can be very erratic. I've only had 2 books published, but basically from the time I get the idea to the time I have something I would like to, I feel comfortable sending to an editor, it takes about a year. Then add on another year for the revision and editing and basically rewriting the whole book process. And then from the time you have a complete manuscript as it's going to be printed, there usually is another year so they can promote the book and get it into print. So it is not a fast process by any means.
You kind of already answered this, but maybe you could elaborate on it. Do you have a set schedule for writing, or do you do it based on inspiration?
I don't do it on a schedule or inspiration, but just whenever I happen to have time. My wonderful wife, who's sitting back there in the corner, Sandy, she's very good about taking our daughter over to Grandma's house most Sundays, so I have time to sit down and actually write. I also get by on a lot less sleep than the rest of the family, so I can be up around midnight writing away. It's just a matter of when I can make time for it. Plus, I'm a teacher, so I have the entire summer off. And this is a just wonderful excuse not to teach summer school. I can't teach summer school. I have to write. I must write.
Okay, thank you.
Have you ever experienced writer's block?
Oh, let's see. Yes. Yeah, it happens to everybody. I have the time. I know what I'm going to write. I say I have to get my characters from point A to point B. I will sit down and think, I got nothing. I'm the one who created this problem, and darned if I know how it's supposed to resolve itself. And there is no magic way to get through it. You know, sometimes I just think I got to put this project aside for a little bit, and maybe the idea will come to me. Or sometimes I think I'm just going to write a poor chapter, something I know is not very good, to get them to point B and write on there, and then hopefully I will come up with an idea later. It's very frustrating when you think, finally, after weeks, I have some uninterrupted time where I can dedicate to writing, and then you got nothing. But it happens to everybody. I wish I had a solution for it.
You've mentioned several books that weren't published or didn't get completed. Out of all your books published, not complete, incomplete, which was the most difficult to write and why?
The most difficult to write, my editor came up with an idea for me to write a science fiction trilogy, and she said she was very enthused about it. I was very enthused, I sent her a draft and she said, no, this isn't what I'm looking for. I want you to keep these things in mind when you rewrite it. And I said, okay, and I kept those things in mind and I rewrote it. And she said, no, that's still not what I'm looking for. Here's a chapter by chapter outline of how the book is going to go. And that took a lot of fun out of it. I felt like I was writing a novelization of a movie I didn't particularly enjoy. So I wrote it chapter by chapter the way she wrote it and said, no, you're still not getting it. And eventually back and forth, she said, you know what, forget it. This just isn't going to happen. Wasn't her fault, wasn't my fault, but we just had two very different ideas of how the book was supposed to go. And we could never get something that the both of us liked. So I prefer to write just from my heart and then change things as the editor sees fit. And unfortunately, I was not able to wrap my mind around writing something by somebody else's specifications. That was more my failure than hers.
What makes good writing, like the process of it?
Well, that's a question. When I can go back and read something and think, this is something I'm proud of. Sandy has a poster in her 4th grade classroom that says it's a good feeling to write something that you know is good. And it's Snoopy saying that, but I think that's something very profound. It is when I can go back and read it and think, yes, I'm proud of this. Because sometimes I'll spend a whole night working on something and I read it the next day and I think, what was I thinking? This is awful. That was a waste of time. But when I guess the way to say it's good is when you read it and it's something you would be proud to show somebody else.
So would you say that undefinable almost?
Undefinable completely. It's there's no set standards that you can say this is a good book and this is a mediocre book and this is a poor book. I mean, some people will think Twilight is the end-all be-all. Some people absolutely hate it, and you can't say, well, you're right and you're wrong. It's just, it is what it is, and they totally won the Show Me Award, and I didn't. That was Hunger Games, actually, the BBM.
May I ask a question that's not on here?
Sure.
Okay. Did you ever have like a dream idea or dream plot that you really wanted to do, but you felt like would never actually make it, or you never got it going, but you still want to come back to?
I have been for years, even before playing with matches, have been wanting to write a horror story that takes place on the University of Missouri campus, and I have had so many different drafts of this and showed it to so many different people, and nobody has really liked it. Nobody can tell me what the big fault is. They just said it's just not for me, and it's like that kid that's a perpetual failure, but you never want to give up on them because it's your kid. I'm maybe flogging a dead horse, but I would really love to see that one be published someday, and maybe it's a waste of my time, but I haven't given up on it.
Okay, thank you.
What's your biggest motivation for being a writer?
I think it's past success. I never really thought the dream would come true. I never thought I would ever see anything in print. But then Playing with Matches was in print, Almost Perfect was in print, and I started getting letters from people who said, I really enjoyed this book. And there is nothing quite so affirming as to that somebody took the time to write and say, I enjoyed your book. And that's what keeps me going, just because I would like to experience that again, just to know I've touched a stranger's life.
And taking your wife to the Bahamas is a pretty good benefit too. Just saying.
Which one of your writings are you most proud of?
Most proud of? That's hard to say. Again, it's like saying which of your kids are you most proud of? I think Playing with Matches was more of a book that was from the heart, just because it was so much based on my own experiences, and it was just very much my personality shows through there, so I like it. The Almost Perfect, it won the big national award, and that's what most people read of mine. It's what most people, somebody wrote to me once and said, a year ago today I finished Almost Perfect, and the next day I came out to my mom as transgender. And I thought, wow, I never thought I would affect somebody's life like that. I never thought my books would have influence like that. So that's truly a powerful feeling. But if I had to choose, it's the unpublished horror novel.
You kind of already answered this, but when did you start writing? Like what age?
25. I can answer you specifically. Before that, never wrote a thing. And it was just because I was looking for something to do. Mexican internet's very slow, and there was nothing good on TV. And I wasn't prepared to pick up a gun and go down to the Guatemalan border.
You kind of answered her, but how has your life's personal experiences affected your writing?
Like I said, playing with matches, that was the main character was me. I was funny, I was awkward, I was afraid of girls, and that kind of put a lot of myself into that book. And I tell everybody it's a good idea to write what you know, write what you have experienced. I always tell my dad, you should write about your experiences in the Vietnam War. And he said, but I was a typist. Nobody wants to read about somebody who typed during the war. And he said, it's not about what you did. It's about how you tell the story. You tell such funny, interesting stories. And I wasn't there. You know, for the war's been over for 40 years, and there's been pretty much 2 generations who don't know what that's like. So you need to tell the story. You need to put your own experiences into it. Too many people think they don't have anything interesting to say, but it's really, if you can tell a good story, it doesn't matter if it's the Hunger Games or just a slice of life, everyday story. It's something people can relate to.
What point in the writing process do you find to be the most difficult? Because some would say the beginning is the most difficult, some would say the end. Maybe even the middle, because you just get the writer's block, but what's...
Yes. They're all very difficult. I have a bad time with beginnings. When you are writing for teenagers, for YA, they are the toughest audience to write for. Older people, they'll pick up a book and think, yeah, this is slow, this isn't great, but I read 100 pages, might as well finish the whole thing, see if it picks up. A lot of younger people will think, I read 5 pages, this went nowhere, I'm not going to waste my time reading something that may not turn out to be very good. So you have to have a very, very good hook at the beginning, and that goes for any book when you're showing it to an editor. They're not going to waste time with more than 2 pages max. If they're not interested in your first 2 pages, then they're not interested in it at all. So it's very hard to get that beginning. Sometimes I'll just write a weak beginning and then come back and try to fix it. So I'd say I have the most trouble with beginnings.
Okay.
Are you ever going to try and rewrite any of your books?
Rewrite, no. I think they are what they are. I mean, I know Neil Gaiman. He it was the 10th year anniversary of his book American Gods, and he said that this has changed a little bit. I finally went back to fix all the things I wanted to fix. And if you're an author of his stature, you can go back and do that. Whereas when the paperback version of Playing with Matches came out, there was a typo in the hardcover version that was their mistake, and I asked them to fix it. And it was like, okay, we'll fix this, but this is going to be an expensive and lengthy process, and you owe us. So I don't think there was enough interest in a second edition, so to speak.
Do you have any difficulty staying in touch with what young adults are interested in and stuff since you're at a different stage in life now?
Well, some people say I never really matured past 17, but you know, as a librarian, it is easier to keep my finger on the pulse of what's popular, and it is personal interest. I do like to read YA stuff. It's there's a lot of good stuff out there. It's difficult to kind of know what's going to be popular in 5 years. You know, if you look what's popular now, you think, I'm going to write some post-apocalyptic stuff, because that's what all the books are about, but, you know, in 5 years, people are going to think, oh, that's so 2010, or vampires, or whatever. That's why I think it's just write what's from your heart, write what's in here, and if it's good, you have a better chance, rather than thinking, I'm going to write what I think people are going to want to read. Which may be why I'm having such a hard time getting published yet. That's all? Anybody else?
I guess a random one. Back to the horror story you wanted to write. Since it's so local and it seems almost personal, is it almost a parody of experiences you've had, or a play on people you've met there?
Yes, absolutely, and maybe that's part of the problem. I wrote it about a college student, and it was just flagrantly myself and my friends when we were in college. And I had an agent at the time, and she said, what you did here was you took a teenage character and shoehorned him into a college situation. If you want to get this published, rewrite it as a teenager and with teenage experiences, and it'll work out better. And I said, that's all great, except it takes place on a college campus. How do I do that? But I got around that. I rewrote it with the main character as a teenager, had to totally change his personality. But it is rewritten, and now I'm just in the frustrating, anybody want to buy a book stage.
On playing with matches, you kind of said it was not based on your life, but your experiences in high school. The character of Melody, was that based on somebody real that you knew?
If you haven't read Playing with Matches, it's about a kind of nerdy guy named Leon who becomes friends with a girl named Melody who has a very badly disfigured face, and about their budding relationship. Every single character in Playing with Matches is somebody in real life except for Melody. Melody was the pretty much only 100% fictitious character. Everyone else, even the characters you think wouldn't be real life people, are real life people.
So you're two big thugs that...
The two big crazy twins he hangs out with, one's now a high school principal, the other's a police detective. But yeah, they were a couple of crazy guys I do in high school. And the crazy chemistry teacher was also my junior year chemistry teacher, and he did cause a lot of explosions.
What were you doing in Mexico?
It was shortly after college, and I thought I just want to get out of here and try something different. And I went to a job fair in Iowa, and somebody said, "Hey, you want to go to Mexico?" So I said, "Okay, I'll go to Mexico." And was there for 3 years. I taught English to kindergartners. I was very, very excited. That first day of school, I had almost no Spanish. They had no English. Anything else? Come on, I know why people sit in the back, so they don't get called on. But come on, somebody around there. Yes.
Do you ever learn from other writers?
Oh God, yes. I am in a writers group. We meet twice a month, and we review each other's manuscripts. And I would never have been published without these people. They read my stuff, and they say, this is where you need to change it. And as a writer, you don't want to hear where your failures and shortcomings are, but if you ever hope to be published, that's what you need to know. You need to know what you're doing wrong. And by reading a lot of YA and reading a lot of works in progress, it just absolutely helps me out. So yes, I owe quite a lot to my writers group, just for people who have the courage to say, hey, this isn't very good, and if you're hoping to be published, you need to work on this. Yes?
I have a kind of a question about royalties.
Yeah.
Do they change over time, or do they?
I get 10% of the cover price of a book, which means I get about $1 a book. There is a thing in my contract that says if I sell X number of books, the percentage will go up. Haven't hit that yet. I don't recall the numbers just off the top of my head. But basically, when they sent me that first contract, it had little stickers on it that said sign here, here, and here. Okay. I think if I had an agent at the time, I might have gotten a slightly better deal. But then again, I was totally unproven, so I might not have. But I'm very happy with what they've paid me. They've rewarded me very well. Yes?
What's your favorite book?
My favorite book of all time?
Yes, of all time.
Catch-22 by Joseph Heller.
That was my favorite book. That's hilarious.
If you're not familiar with that, it's about this guy. It's World War II. He's a bombardier. He's had so many close calls, he decides, I don't want to be in the Army anymore, so I'm just going to pretend I'm crazy and they'll kick me out. What he doesn't realize is that only a crazy person will willingly go to war, so the crazier he acts, they think he's totally ready to go into combat. And if you have ever been in a situation where you feel like you're trapped by a bureaucracy, where you feel like you're so much smarter and know so much more than the people who are actually in charge of high school, that's a book you can relate to. A close second is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which was an excellent movie, but an even better book. And if you're not familiar with that, it's about a guy who's in jail, and he thinks, I don't like being in jail, so I'm going to pretend I'm crazy. They'll put me in a mental hospital, and that'll be a much sweeter deal. But when he gets there, he realizes that the mental hospital is in many ways much more brutal, much more oppressive than the prison was. Everything is run by the sadistic nurse who she doesn't beat the patients, she just crushes them emotionally. And the patients all look at this new guy as somebody who's going to be their savior, somebody who's going to rise up of the rebellion against this dictatorship. However, he realizes if I start really breaking the rules and start making trouble, you know, they can keep me here a lot longer than my original sentence was. They can keep me here for years if they want to. So he has to decide, what am I willing to risk to better these men's lives? It's a very funny but very tragic at the same time book. Yes?
You mentioned you started writing when you moved to Mexico.
Yes.
How important do you think travel and seeking new experiences as far as writing?
You know, I think it's an absolutely wonderful thing if you can do it. I absolutely recommend that to anyone. When you are young enough, when you don't have kids, when you don't have a house you have to pay for, that's why I did it. I thought this is the only time I can travel like this. I very, very, very much recommended that to you. I mean, you're not going to be able to spend a year traveling through Europe because that's very expensive, but if there are opportunities out there for people who are willing to live at a not great, I made about $100 a week when I was in Mexico, and the cost of living down there is a lot lower, but it was lean times, but I don't regret it at all. I saw so many things I never would have seen, met so many people I never would have met, experienced so many things I never would have done had I stayed in Missouri. So I think if you ever have the chance, spend a semester or a year traveling, doing volunteer work, working as a translator, whatever. Just do a little research. There are opportunities out there, and I've never regretted it. Anything else? Come on.
Do you publish in any form of digital medium?
Yes, both Almost Perfect and Playing with Matches are available as ebooks. Yes?
Do you write more on the computer, or do you like to actually physically write?
I have never physically wrote anything since high school. I have terrible handwriting, and I would just much rather get even just random notes down on a computer. I find that much easier, but I'm not saying that's the right way to do it. That's just the way I do it.
Do you use any certain software or anything?
Just Microsoft Word. That's what helps me. Yeah.
You're here tomorrow for in Springfield.
Yes.
For an event. Can you tell us about the event that you're here tomorrow?
It's Springfield's Writers Guild. That's a writers group like I'm in Columbia. Only in Columbia we have 5 members, and they apparently have about 50. I'm going to sit in with them while they talk about other people's works, look at other people's works, and then I'm just going to do a kind of a little talk like I did here today. Hopefully I won't be late tomorrow like I was here, but it was I'm always honored when somebody asks me to come speak. Very, very humbling when they think you're worth listening to. But somebody think, yes?
Yeah. How do you handle reviews? Do you seek them out, or?
I do obsessively Google myself. I mean, constantly. And sometimes you'll look up Goodreads or Amazon, and there'll be just this glowing thing, and you'll think, oh yeah, that was me. All right, some stranger took the time to say, well, what a good review. And sometimes you'll read them, and they will just absolutely eviscerate something that you feel is a part of your soul. And party wants to say, well, who the hell asked you, buddy? But sometimes it can kind of hurt when especially when you think maybe they have a point. Sometimes they don't have a point, and you want to write to them and say no, but you can't do that. You just gotta let it go. It's not always easy.
Off of the reviews that you see, does that ever affect your writing in the future?
Somewhat. I mean, there have been times where people have mentioned specific things. They said too wordy, too many scenes that didn't advance the plot. And that's definitely something you should take into account. Like when I go to my writers group, if a lot of the members of my group say the same thing, I think, well, they probably have a point then. And likewise, a lot of reviews say the same thing. I can't afford to discount that. It's if a lot of people think that, then that's a good sample of the public. Yes?
Are you working on any other books right now besides the one?
Yes, my editor said, I want you to write a book about nerds in love. And I said, nerds? That's something I don't have to research. It was a very near and dear subject to my heart, and right now I'm just waiting for the official go-ahead, though I'm not actually waiting, I'm just going ahead and writing it. I'm about 100 pages in, so keep your fingers crossed that they'll give me the green light.
Do you have to tell them before you start writing a book that you're going to write it?
I don't have to tell them, but they came up with this idea, so I can start writing it, but unfortunately they might say, yeah, but do it this way, and that could eliminate 50 pages worth of work, and it'll have to go back and change. So, but I can't not write. I can't just sit around and enjoy myself. So I write whenever I can, whether it's I'm going anywhere or not, we'll see. Yes?
Before you were published and under contract, did you ever have any reservations about submitting a manuscript when you don't already have an established copyright or really rights to it? What kind of legal avenue do you have in that when you're submitting your work, or is it just...
So, as in being worried somebody might steal it?
Yes.
That, I've been asked that before, and that's why it is important that when whoever you show it to is somebody that is established. There's a website called Predators and Editors. You can look up just about any agent or publishing house and see what people's past experiences have been. And if a lot of people say it wasn't good, then you should think twice. Most of the time, people are very professional. They wouldn't do something like that. If you are absolutely worried about establishing a copyright on something, it wouldn't hurt to take it to a notary and have it notarized, saying this is I wrote this on such and such date. That's not something you really have to worry about, but do be careful. Don't put it on the internet where anybody can see it. When I was first starting out, I was just desperate to get an agent, and I wrote to this agent. And they said, "Hey, we're kind of interested," and they sent it to us. And they say, "Hey, we really like this. Why don't we represent you?" And I was just ecstatic. I emailed everybody. I said, I got an agent. This is wonderful. Except for the people in my writers group. Because when they wrote to me, they said, as soon as we get that check for $200, we will start promoting your book. And the people in my writers group said, whoa, 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 they're asking you for money? And I said, well, that's standard, isn't it? They said, no. They earn money by earning you money. You shouldn't be. They shouldn't be asking you for money. Go research these people. So I looked them up on Predators and Editors, and everybody said complete scam artists. They take your money and nothing ever happens. They took my money. I don't even know if they even submitted it anywhere. And I looked at their website and said, we've had lots and lots of authors published in China. So I had to unfortunately go back and tell everyone, looks like I don't have an agent. It was very humbling, but it made me think more about who I wanted to sign with. It's very tempting to take the first offer you have, but you have to do your homework. You have to do your homework if you do not want to get ripped off. There's other places that act like they're real publishing houses, but they're not, and you could sign over the rights to them and then never see it in print. Anything else? Yes?
Both of the books you mentioned have to do with mental illness or the appearance of mental illness, and also backwards authority figures and bureaucracy. Do you ever consider writing something like that?
I do like the theme. Catch-22 and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I set the bar so high.
I'm not saying.
But it's just that is a wonderful theme. The inmates have taken over the asylum, and it's the biggest idiots who are all of a sudden in charge of everything. I would love to work with that theme. I would have to come up with a really good plot. It's funny, when I was in Mexico, I was telling one of my friends, I just loved One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Ken Casey, what an author. And he said, oh yeah, I met him one time. Yeah, he was at my college. Oh yeah, totally good. Damn you met him. You met my idol. So If I could think of a plot that could do that idea justice, I would.
Maybe a Mexican high school?
Maybe an American high school.
Possibly, yes.
You said when you were preparing for Almost Perfect that you wanted to write a non-traditional love story, you know, boy falls in love with girl, but a little bit different. What made you go the avenue of Sage being the male to female as opposed to, you know, the other way that, you know, a female to male?
That's a good question. That's a very good question, and I can't think of an aha moment where I just decided that, other than I knew I was going to not write it from the transgender person's point of view, but the person they were involved with, and I felt I just was more comfortable writing a male teenager than I would have been writing it from a female teenager's point of view. Which is not to say all trans people are heterosexual, but I kind of came up with the idea of Logan's character before I came up with Sage's, and I just thought that was easier for me to write that way. Anything else? Come on, just a couple more. Yes?
If there's one piece of advice you could give to people that maybe want to be a writer someday, what would that be?
I got 2 pieces of advice. Get peer review, get people to read your manuscript and tell you how it can be improved.